Hi, this is Tony Sagami. With all the turmoil going on in the Middle East and the deepening nuclear problems in Japan and the $100 a barrel price for oil, this is probably not a bad time to talk about oil energy. There are many aspects of the oil industry, but let's focus on oil drilling today. In particular, I want to talk about a very narrow section of it they're called jack-up drilling rigs. Jack-up drilling rigs. Now, a jack-up is really a floating barge, and it's fitted with long support legs that can be raised and lowered up or down after they're put into place. The jack-up rig is towed out in the ocean with its legs up and the hull floating in the water. Upon arrival at the desired destination, the legs are jacked down onto the seafloor. As this picture shows, many of you have seen these. Now, the jacking system is used to raise the entire barge above water to a predetermined level or create kind of an air gap so that the waves and the currents only affect the slender legs and not the barge hull itself. Now, jack-up rigs can only be placed in relatively shallow water, generally less than 400 feet. So these aren't the type of deep water oil rigs that were used in the BP disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, here's the important point. Jack-up rigs, there's more jack-up rigs used in the worldwide offshore drilling than any other type of offshore drilling rig in the world. And that's not going to change with the issues of deep water drilling because of the BP disaster. Now, there's other type of offshore drilling rigs that includes like semi-submersibles, drill ships, which are kind of like ship-shaped vessels with rigs mounted in the center, and and the last one is tension leg platforms. This picture shows a different type of offshore drilling rigs and what depth of water they operate in. Left to right, you'll see the fixed platform. The next one would be the jack-up rigs, the semi-submersibles, which float on pontoon-like structures, and the drill ships, which are ship-like vessels and boats. And then the last one is the tension leg platforms. Now, as the next graphic shows, there's thousands of these offshore oil rigs in the Gulf of Mexico, and there's even more around the rest of the world. But the problem is that the BP disaster is forcing a lot of oil companies to focus on more shallow water exploration, and that's great news for the jack-up rig producers and explorers. Now, in short, investing in companies that utilize and or produce jack-up rigs has some fantastic long-term potential and perhaps one of the very most lucrative places to invest in oil. Now, what stocks give you exposure to this hot offshore drilling section? Now, there's a couple American companies you can take a look at. You can look at Transocean Limited. The symbol is RIG, R-I-G, R-I-G. And another one will be Diamond Offshore. That ticker is D-O. D-O is the ticker. Now, these provide offshore contract drilling services for oil and natural gas companies, and they're especially active in deep water and harsh environment drilling like the Arctic. Now, so that makes it not so much the shallow jack-up rigs. But you can also take a look at Noble Corporation, Noble, and its ticker is NE, NE like the state of Nebraska, and they also provide offshore drilling services. But instead of investing in the companies that actually do the drilling, you could also invest in the companies that produce those offshore drilling rigs. And two of the biggest ones in the world are Singaporean companies. And they have secured billions of dollars worth of jack-up contracts already in just the first few months of 2011. Let me give you an example. Keppel Corporation, that's spelled K-E-P-P-E-L, Keppel Corporation is one of the largest oil rig builders in the world, but it also has significant property and land-based infrastructure construction business. So it really dilutes its profitable offshore maritime division. Keppel trades on the U.S. over-the-counter market. This ticker is KPPLF.PK. KPPLF.PK. Now, the purest play, in the jack-up oil rig is another Singapore company called SemCorp, and it's spelled S-E-M-B-C-O-R-P. S-E-M-B-C-O-R-P, SemCorp Marine. And it's the second largest offshore oil rig builder in the world. In fact, it just signed a $427 million contract to build 2 jack-up rigs for Noble Corporation just last week. Now, SemCorp is traded on the Singapore Stock Exchange. The ticker is S51.SI, S51.SI, or it is available on the U.S. over-the-counter market, and that ticker is SMBMF.PK, SMBMF.PK. Now, I'm not suggesting you rush out and buy any of these stocks tomorrow morning. As always, timing is everything, and these stocks have been on a run, so you should wait for them to go on sale, or wait for my buy signals in Asia Stock Alert. Now, lastly, I've received a lot of emails last week with comments from people who watch my videos that have voiced reluctance to invest in any stocks that aren't sold on a U.S. exchange. I think that's a big mistake. It's just so easy and so cheap to invest in most major foreign markets. I think it's just plain silly to be scared of major markets in places like Tokyo, Hong Kong, Seoul, Singapore. After all, these are not backwater third world countries. They're established markets that are every bit as safe and cheap and easy to invest in as the NYSE. Now, if your current broker can't process trades on these major foreign exchanges, such as Singapore, you really need to find another broker that can. And if you're looking for a potential place to look, I recommend you go back and read my February 23rd column where I talked about this issue specifically. And lastly, while there's always going to be some great American growth stories, I absolutely believe that the majority of the very best investment opportunities will be found over in Asia. And unless you become a global investor, you're going to miss out on some of the easiest and fattest stock market profits in the world. Until next week, this is Tony Sagami signing off.